The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to a webinar hosted by United Charitable Programs. My name is Stephanie Lanham and I'll be today's moderator. I will be introducing our presenter as well as reading off any questions that you may have at the end of the presentation. As you may know, this webinar will guide you on how to hold a fundraiser or event as a fiscally sponsored program of UCP. But before we get started, we'd like to go over a few webinar housekeeping items. All attendees at this webinar will be muted. If you have any questions, simply type them into the comment field located on the control panel to the right of your screen. They will then be answered at the end of the presentation. Also, I would just like to make sure that everyone can hear me, so if you could please raise your hand with the icon on the control panel. All right, great. So let's get started. A UCP guide to hosting an event or fundraiser. This presentation will be presented by Katie Kern, who is the Director of Program Administration here at United Charitable Programs. She will be the main point person throughout the duration of your program here at UCP and will be able to answer many of the questions that you will have regarding your program. So now let me switch it over to Katie. Katie?
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. Like Stephanie was saying, we're going to talk about hosting an event or fundraiser as a project of UCP. So let's go ahead and get started. Now before you begin any program activities, if you have not already done so, please take a look at our Program Operations Manual and our Fiscal Sponsorship Agreement. Both documents are very, very important. The Operations Manual is really going to describe to you how your program works underneath UCP and how we work with your program. And the Fiscal Sponsorship Agreement is a requirement for all programs to have on file before they can begin operating. If you have any questions or if you don't understand anything about something in the agreement or in the manual, please feel free to contact us. We are always available to talk or help you in any way. Our email here is info@unitedcp.org, and our main phone line is 703-536-8708. I'm going to provide you with my direct contact information at the end of the webinar, but you can also use this information if you ever wanted to give us a call. And both the Operations Manual and the Fiscal Sponsorship Agreement is available on our website, unitedcharitableprograms.org, underneath the Fiscal Sponsorship tab. This is just a quick overview about the things that we're going to talk about or touch on here in today's webinar. We're going to talk about the benefits of hosting a fundraiser or an event, our policies or good practices for fundraisers or events, options, facilitation of funds, donors, and reporting after the event is finished. This is just a quick graphic that I wanted to show everyone that demonstrates where money comes in from for these different nonprofits. And these are all nonprofits in the United States. This information was taken for the Annual Report of Philanthropy in 2011. Now these are 2011 numbers, but you can still see the big amount, the largest amount is from individual donors. A lot of people have a misconception that most of the money that nonprofits bring in come from grants. And then it's true that grants do bring in a lot of money, and it's typically a large amount at a single time. But your individual donors are the ones that are going to be supporting your program, talking about your program to their friends and family and community members, and they're the ones that are really going to influence the longevity of your program. And we're going to talk about cultivating that relationship later. There are a number of reasons to hold an event or fundraiser, but we've really identified 4. One, to educate the public about your program's mission and activities, engage constituents or community members in your program-specific activities, raise awareness of your program's needs, things like you may need volunteers, you may need office space for your program, perhaps you need let's say a donation of computers or things like that, as well as ensure the longevity of your program. Having an event or fundraiser, you're going to be able to get dollars in the door, and those charitable dollars can then be used to make sure that your program has the things that it needs in order to operate and operate successfully over a number of years. Planning an event or fundraiser can be daunting. A lot of our program managers, when they first get started, they just don't know what to do. What's the first step? How do you hold an event? How do you plan a fundraiser? And while we want to help you as much as we can, we're not able to actually plan those events for you, which is why we put together this webinar to talk about policies and good practices, give you ideas on fundraisers, how to develop a plan or perhaps a strategy on how to hold an event or fundraiser. But we're always here to talk to you about any questions you may have. Again, you can call us at 703-538-8867, which is my direct line, or shoot us an email at info@unitedcp.org. We do have a fundraising and event approval form. You will need to submit that to us at least 30 days in advance. So about a month before your actual date of your fundraiser, you want to send that form in to us. And that form really provides UCP with information about the event. It includes a budget for the event, and it inquires about any kind of additional licenses you may need, sales tax, liability insurance, and it also requests copies of promotional materials. And here's an example of a fundraising and event approval form. Again, we're looking to make sure we understand the event, make sure that the program can afford to hold the event, as well as make sure that what the event is appropriate for that program. One of the main things about events in today's world is that we need to make sure that there's an insurance policy as well as waivers in place for the participants or volunteers. An event insurance policy, you can get one event insurance policy that will cover, let's say, a one-day event or let's say a two-day event. Or you could even get general liability insurance for, let's say, an entire year that will cover numerous events. And that insurance should be titled to, United Charitable Programs, FBO, which stands for the benefit of, and then the program name. If you've already purchased an event insurance policy, you can add United Charitable Programs as additional insured. And that general liability insurance policy that we spoke about earlier, that again can be a year-long policy that will cover, let's say, 3 events that you're going to hold in that year. We also have 2 types of waivers, participant and volunteer waivers. Participant waivers are for people that are actually participating in the event or fundraisers activities, things like, let's say, runners in a 5K event, or let's say you're hosting an event at the Potomac River for the cleanup. People that come and help clean up would need to sign that participant waiver. And volunteer waivers are for the volunteers that, let's say, work at an event or fundraiser where there may be some element of danger. Again, let's say at that Potomac River cleanup, you're going to want to have your volunteers sign that waiver. And these things ensure the safety of the event attendees. We want to make sure that people that attend your event are safe and that they're enjoying the event. And at the same time, we want to make sure your program and UCP are covered in case there was some kind of unfortunate accident. There are a number of different fundraising options. We talked about earlier in that graphic. There are individual donors. Your program could conduct program services, events or fundraisers, grants, corporate sponsorships. Now, grants is a webinar that we're going to hold a whole separate one for later on in the year. And so we're not going to talk about that much today, but we will be talking about corporate sponsorships. Here are just a few examples of fundraisers and events that our programs have conducted in the past. Things like silent auctions, bake sales, raffles, and we're going to talk about raffles later too. Rules and regulations can differ in each state or locality. Dinners, galas, golf tournaments, musical performances, and festivals. Now, we have a number of programs that conduct one golf tournament a year and are able to fund their entire program needs for that particular year from that golf tournament. So it is what we say a very good moneymaker for our program. And in the corner, you'll see a musical performance that's being conducted by our program down in Florida. The program is called Florida Lake Symphony Orchestra, and they provide musical performances to individuals in the Mount Dora area. Part of that fundraising and event approval form requires a budget. And to create a budget, you need a couple of different things. You need to understand the expenses that your program is going to have for that event or fundraiser, as well as the income that's going to be generated from that program's event or fundraiser. Events expenses can include things like staff time, venue rental, printing, travel, media or website expenses, volunteer expenses, or even speaker fees. And the speaker fees are when you're paying an individual taxable income to come and, let's say, speak at an event or speak at a dinner or a gala. Income from the event could be things like ticket sales, sponsorships, auction purchases, donations, in-kind gifts. Now, soliciting funds in each state, UCP is registered in every state that we're required to do so. But you also want to provide your donors or your constituents with information about UCP and our status as a 501c3. You can do that by providing them with one of our IRS termination letters, which is available on our financial and legal tab on our website, as well as the verification letter that you received when you began a program at UCP. And if you, let's say, have misplaced that or lost that, you can definitely give us a call or shoot us an email, and we can email that back over to you so you have it on hand. And our website also contains the state solicitation registration and guidelines. So if your donors want or constituents want to see something pertaining to their particular state, you can go onto our website and look that up. Now, each printed material for, let's say, a solicitation or a fundraiser or an event does need to include a statement about your program and its relationship with UCP. And that statement is, you'd want to have your program name here, is a fiscally sponsored charitable project of United Charitable Programs, a registered 501c3 public charity. Your gift is deeply appreciated and tax deductible as a charitable contribution to the fullest extent of the law. Please see UCP website, unitedcp.org, to view all charitable, financial, solicitations, and registration documents. Most people just have that first sentence on, let's say, their printed flyers or materials, but if you're actually doing a solicitation, you will need to have this entire paragraph available to the public on that printed or, let's say, electronic material. There are a few things you need to know that you can and can't do as a UCP fiscally sponsored program. One, you always want to use that statement. Here's let's say, a more clear statement, including our TIN, which stands for Tax Identification Number. And that statement, again, is the name of your program here is a fiscally sponsored project of United Charitable Programs, a registered 501c3 public charity, and then you can provide our TIN, which is 20-428-6082. You always want to use the title Program Manager. You can't use titles like Vice President or President or Director because those titles are reserved for our corporate staff here. You always want to comply with all pertinent local, state, federal regulations and laws pertaining to fundraising or events. You cannot sign a contract or agreement in the name of UCP or your program. Basically, your program itself is not a legal entity, but a program of a legal entity, which is United Charitable Programs. And UCP would not sign an agreement or contract that would place us into any kind of position of liability, meaning there is a bill or, let's say, a payment necessary in order for the contract to be executed. And you don't want to use UCP's tax ID number without our consent, meaning we don't want you to go out and set up a, let's say, Staples account or an OfficeMax account with our tax identification number. Again, we don't want our programs to use our TINs to put us in a position of liability. Raising funds through corporate sponsorships or sponsors. Corporate sponsorships are available to most 501c3s. Most 501c3s or even nonprofit programs are able to develop a relationship with, let's say, a community business or, let's say, even a nationwide business, whereas that business wants to support or engage in that program's mission statement or activities. There's a difference between advertising and sponsorship. Here are two examples. One is generously sponsored by ABC Corporation, and the second is visit ABC Corporation on Main Street for half-off Tuesdays. The first is very obviously a sponsorship. There's no advertising. We don't allow our programs to advertise for for-profit business. We definitely want our programs to stay to that nonprofit line directly, and we want to make sure that our programs can definitely correctly identify their sponsors and say that these individuals or these programs or these businesses have helped them in some way, but you don't want to advertise for that business. Another kind of portion of fundraising and events with corporate sponsorships or even just sponsorships is that there is a tax deductible portion and a value received portion. An example would be for let's say at a golf tournament, and a local business sponsors a hole, ABC Corporation again, sponsors the 7th hole for $2,000. In return for that sponsorship, the sponsor receives 4 golf entries which are valued at $250. Now 4 times $250 is $1,000. That means $1,000 of that $2,000 value, whole sponsorship is considered a payment, whereas only $1,000 of it is considered taxable deduction. Now we're going to talk about how to deposit donations and payments from a fundraiser or event, or even from any general donation you may have into your program. We do have a deposit form. I'm going to show you an example of that in a moment. Now, a payment and a donation, there are 2 different animals altogether. One is when a donation, when money is given to a program without any kind of benefit or value of services or anything received in return. The second is where money is given to a program and something of value is received in return for that, and that's a payment. Tax-deductible gifts versus payments for tickets. Tax-deductible gifts are, again, when funds are given and there is nothing that is received in return. We're going to talk about, I believe, inconsequential gifts in a moment, but when a donation is given to the program and there is no benefit whatsoever, that is fully tax-deductible. Whereas, let's say someone pays for a ticket, and that ticket price is $25, and that's the value of that ticket. That means that that payment for a ticket is 100% a payment and not any kind of tax-deductible donation. That deposit form also includes information about what kind of donations or checks that you're receiving. Those could be grants, events, sponsorships, program service revenue. We also accept credit card donations both online and via a form, and that form is available on our website, unitedcp.org, underneath the Forms and Policies tab. We also provide secure online access where you can log in and see what has been deposited into your account and what's been taken for our fees, and I'll show you how to get into that in a moment. Donations are collected by the program manager and then forwarded to UCP with that donation deposit form. And that donation could be titled or paid to the order of United Charitable Program / the program name. It could be paid to the order of UCP with the program name in the memo line or the program name itself. Here's an example of a program donation and payment deposit form. We're going to want definitely your program's name and account number. And then you're going to select the type of donation it is, whereas it could be a general gift or a donation. It could be a program service, event revenue, a grant from the government or other sources. And we want to make sure that we understand what that income is. So you're going to check each box, or the box that's applicable to those donations that are coming in. And at the bottom, you're going to fill out the check number, the name of the payee or the donor, and then there's three columns. The final column is the total check amount. And then the two middle columns are the donation amount, which is tax deductible, and the payment amount, which is not tax deductible. I'm going to give you an example of it later, but just a quick kind of idea to think about is whatever is received as value, let's say a ticket price is $100, but the actual value of that ticket is $50. That means $50 is the tax deductible amount, and $50 is the payment amount. And that's what you want to indicate on those lines. There are a couple of things that a lot of programs have questions about that I want to touch on. Things like prizes and gambling. Now, prizes can be cash or non-monetary, let's say a gift certificate, but those are considered taxable income. So we would need a W-9 from the winner of that prize so that we could issue a 1099 at the end of the year to that winner. And you, as the program manager, are responsible for getting that W-9, that signed W-9, from that individual before, let's say, they leave an event or the fundraiser. It is important that you collect that because we are required by the IRS to issue that 1099 and inform them of the IRS themselves of those funds. The other is gambling. And gambling could be things like bingo or raffles or a casino night. Each state and even each location in that state or locality in that state, they have different regulations and rules concerning outright, let's say, bingo nights or raffles. Some states or localities require that a bingo night or raffle is held by a nonprofit. Others do not. Some states or localities do not even allow raffles or bingo. So it is up to your particular state or locality on what's allowed and what's not allowed. There are different licenses or registrations that you may need to obtain before holding those type of events. For the most part, we recommend that our programs only conduct door prizes, meaning, let's say, instead of selling tickets over the length of October 2013 to anyone in the community and then holding let's say, a drawing, you would only sell tickets to people at an event or fundraiser, and only the people, the attendees of those events or fundraisers, could then purchase a door prize ticket. And at the end of the night, that door prize ticket would then be drawn out and they would be awarded their prize. It differs from raffles, meaning that the time and the length and restrictions of who can buy and how they can buy. But again, I would recommend that you would check with your local or your state legislation or rules or regulations on what nonprofits can do in regards to, let's say, a raffle or a bingo night. Another option for bringing in funds to your program is to sell items. Now, selling items, it is profitable for some programs, meaning that they're able to sell, let's say, T-shirts at an event, or they're able to sell, let's say, mugs or posters at an event or fundraiser. And typically, those types of sales are not sales tax, are not required to have state sales tax collected. Typically, and again, each state is different. Sales tax would only need to be collected and reported if it's an activity that the program is engaging over a length of time. If it's just at a 1 or a 2-day event or fundraiser and something the program doesn't do, let's say every month or every 2 weeks on an ongoing basis, sales tax does not need to be collected. But if you're going to be selling items continually on an ongoing basis, sales tax would need to be collected, and you would need to research that and inform UCP of that so we can go through that approval process and reporting process. Online sales, we recommend instead of holding, let's say, selling T-shirts on an ongoing basis, you go through a thing like Cafe Press. On that website, you're able to design your T-shirts and then have a storefront for your program. And then those funds are then sent to UCP, then we allocate them to your program accounts. And if anyone has any questions about Cafe Press, I'd be happy to answer them at a later time. We just don't have time today to go through all of that. Now, sales tax, like I said earlier, typically is not required if you're selling items at an event or a fundraiser. And again, it's not on an ongoing basis. It's just at, let's say, a 1 or a 2-day event. And another thing that a lot of people have questions about is when something is given in return for a donation. An example would be like with PBS, with a $100 donation, you get a free mug. And typically that donation is $100 or $75 or more, and that mug is probably worth $2, meaning that the value received in return for that donation is inconsequential to the value of the donation itself. And when you give out a gift and donation, that needs to be in the top of your mind. You can't give out a donation, let's say with a donation of $25, somebody gets a book, and that book is probably worth about $20. That means that there would be a payment of $20 and a $5 donation, and you may even need to collect state sales tax on the payment portion. So definitely give us a call or shoot me an email with any questions, or if you have let's say, an idea about a gift with donation proposal, let me know and we can talk it out and see if it would work with your program. Ticket purchase. We touched on it earlier, but I want to go over it really quickly right now too. Now, the actual value of the ticket, let's say it's a dinner, and if you take all these expenses into account, and let's say each person typically has the value of that ticket of, let's say, $25. And then you add more to that for the donation amount, and that's your total ticket price. The value of the ticket is considered the payment portion, and the donation amount, which is over that payment portion, is tax deductible to the donor. So on the actual ticket itself, you should have a statement like, your payment of $50 includes dinner, valued at $25, which results in a tax-deductible gift of $25. So they're able to keep that ticket stub and take it with them when they go to their tax professional or when they fill out their taxes online themselves, so they know that there's that $25 tax-deductible gift to add to their taxes. For a silent auction, a lot of our programs do find that these kind of auctions are very beneficial, and they do bring in quite a bit of charitable dollars. And these are just a few ideas to think about when you're kind of planning an auction. The fair market value, or FMV, of an item is not tax deductible. So an example would be, there are a pair of earrings at a silent auction that are worth $100. And through that bidding process, $200 is paid for the purchase of those earrings. Therefore, $100 is considered a payment and $100 is considered a donation. That's a very simplified version of what could happen at an auction. People have been known to raise the values, or raise their auction prices or their bids so that they can bring more money in the door. For that $100, there wouldn't be a tax receipt. So from UCP itself, you would provide them with a donation receipt that you could fill out, or a thank you that you could fill out. But let's say that amount, again, that pair of earrings is worth $100, but someone pays $350 for those pairs of earrings. That means $250 of that is considered taxable, a tax deduction that they would receive a UCP tax receipt from us. And that is mandated by the IRS. So you'd want to make sure that you send us that information, again, on that payment and deposit form, where we know that that individual needs to receive a tax deduction receipt showing that they gave $250 on a certain date or at a certain time. We do have a few partners that we have available to our programs for the registration, let's say of ticket sales or things like that. One is Black Tie. Now, they are a very sophisticated program, and they are a little bit pricey. Their normal price for anyone just walking in the street off the street is $966. But through our partnership with Black Tie, we're able to offer that price for $299 for one event. And for each additional event after that for, let's say, a year, would be $199. And Black Tie, they do offer a lot of benefits and a lot of services in return for that amount of money. And if you have any questions about Black Tie and their services, you can give us a call or talk to Julie. She'd be your main point of contact about that. We also have Registration Factory. It's a very basic and free service to our program. It's what your donation page currently is. It's the Registration Factory. but you're able also to tailor that donation page or create a new page itself for, let's say, the sale of tickets. We also are able to receive donations from Network for Good, and Network for Good is the main process for things like Facebook causes or CrowdRise. Now, Network for Good does have an additional fee for their services, so please be aware of that. But you are able to reach different kinds of donors through social media like on Facebook or even peer-to-peer fundraising on CrowdRise. There are a number of other sites out there that are available that kind of do the same thing. But we really have identified these as good spaces to work with and something that we understand and can use within our parameters. So if you have a new site or if something else pops up out there that you want to use, give us a call. Let us take a look at it. We want to make sure that it's appropriate to use and that's available to all of our programs. Online access, like we touched on earlier, all of our programs have real-time access to their program account, meaning that they're able to log in and see what's been deposited, what's been deducted for our fees, what's been sent out, let's say, on a disbursement or a reimbursement. You're also able to have a free website, and that website can be used for promoting your fundraiser or an event. If you have any questions about that free website, you can shoot an email to Julie, and her email is Julie, Julie, at unitedcp.org. There's a unique and secure donation link for all of our programs. You can go and see your programs by clicking on the Search for a Program link on our homepage. We already talked about your program activity on online access. And our website does provide you with all of our forms and policies as well as our program operations manual. Here's an example of where you go to get that program login. That's right there. And then underneath of it is the search for a program. Let's say you wanted to find your program specific donation page. You could click on search for a program or even donate to programs. Cultivating your donors. Now, like we talked about earlier, cultivating a donor is very important, meaning you want to have a relationship with a donor that's enduring. You want that donor to be informed of your program's activities. You want that donor to be engaged in your program's activities. A happy donor or a donor that understands and knows about your program is somebody that's going to talk about your program and its activities to other individuals like their family or friends or even other community members. A donor that may contribute, let's say, $100 one year, if you cultivate that relationship, send them activities updates, send them newsletters, they may donate more in the long run. So you don't want to forget to thank your donors. And again, like we talked about earlier with that information graphic of that pie chart, individual donors gave the most in 2011. And that's pretty on par with every other year. And it's 73%. That's a lot of individual donors. And those are the people that you want to cultivate relationships. Those are the people that you want to have engaged in your program. Cultivating your donors will also engage community relationships. You'll be able to talk to, let's say, community leaders, community businesses about your program. Perhaps tell them of your needs. Perhaps they can help with those needs. And in that thank you process, UCP does send substantiation letters for all donations of $250 or more. And that's that tax receipt donation letter that we talked about earlier. And that's mandated by the IRS. For anything under $250, we do have a sample donation letter, which is a template that you can use to thank the donors to your program. You can also create your own if you just want to use the information that we provide in that sample donation letter. Let's say after the event has happened, you want to report to us the donors that attended. Let's say that donation amount versus payment amount, like we talked about earlier. Sponsors to the event, also what value received in the sponsorship total amount. Again, we talked about that earlier where there's a, let's say, a $1,000 donation and they received a value of $500. That means $500 of that is a payment and $500 of that is a tax-deductible donation. If you want to see pictures of your event, we do use those pictures in our sources on our website, and even in these individual webinars, we do like to include pictures of our program. Any successes that you had or challenges that you faced. A lot of programs learn over time how to hold a perfect, let's say, golf tournament, and they just get better and better at it every year. And you also want to request payment or reimbursement for expenses. And we're just going to go over that real quickly. How to request funds from your program account. We have a disbursement request form, as well as different activity codes. Now, each expense that you may have, let's say you have a postage expense from the post office. You have a receipt from the post office for $11. There's an activity code for that. And each kind of expense has a different activity code. And on that form, there are the common activity codes. There are more, and you can see the activity code definitions on our website underneath the Forms and Policies tab. Our normal processing time is 3 to 5 business days. And then we mail that out via the USPS first class mail. We do have additional processing or delivery options that would enable you to get a reimbursement or payment faster to a vendor or individual, even to yourself. For processing, we offer same-day and next-day processing with additional fees. And for delivery, we offer FedEx, card email, and bank wire. And again, there are additional fees for those items. We are able to pay taxable income for services. Unfortunately, we're not able to reimburse you for paying someone taxable income. You want to make sure that we pay that individual directly. And there's documentation that's required for those types of things. A W-9, a receipt or invoice, and then on the actual disbursement request form, you want to include justification or verification of why that expense is necessary for your project or program. Here's an example of a disbursement request form. Again, we want to know your project name and account number, who we're paying, where to send the check, how much you're requesting to have paid, and then again in the middle, number 4, there are the common activity codes. And those are the codes that our programs use the most. Number 5 is the justification. So you're going to explain why this purchase or this expense was necessary for your program. And then you can also indicate if you'd like anything to be placed on the memo line of the check. And that's it. I hope that you learned something today and that you have a better understanding of how to host a fundraiser or an event underneath UCP. We are always here to help, and so you can definitely give me a direct call at 703-538-8867 or shoot me an email at katie@unitedcp.org. And now I'd like to open this up to Stephanie to see if we have any questions.
All right, thank you, Katie. We do have a few questions here. The first question reads, as a program, how do we advertise our event? Do we need to say that we are a project of UCP? How does that work?
Yes, you definitely do want to make sure that the public knows that you're a fiscally sponsored program of UCP. You don't ever want to say that you're your own 501c3 or that you're your own entity, because technically that's not true. You are a fiscally sponsored program of UCP. So we have that statement that you would need to have on, let's say, a flyer or a promotional material. Basically, that statement says your program name is a fiscally sponsored project of United Charitable Programs, a 501c3 public charity. And you can also provide our TIN, our tax identification number there.
Okay. The next question is, how long does the approval process usually take to hold an event?
Well, we do ask that you send us those approval forms 30 days in advance. And that's to make sure that everything's in line. You have the insurance policy in place, you have the budget, you have the funds necessary to, let's say, pay for expenses. But typically when something comes in our door, it's a 3 to 5 business days for us to review, let's say, an event approval form or something like that.
Okay. Let's see, the next question here is, as a program, how am I able to rent an event space? I noticed that you said that we are not allowed to sign off as UCP renting a space, so how do we do that?
Most program managers rent a space in their individual or personal name, meaning, let's say, if I was a program manager and I wanted to rent a local venue to hold a fundraiser, I would sign that contract in my name, so I would sign it as Katie Kern. I wouldn't sign it as the program name or even as UCP, because you can't place UCP in a position of liability.
Okay. What if donors donate cash at the fundraiser? Am I supposed to send in a money order to UCP instead?
Yes, you can convert that cash into a money order or a cashier's check. We actually recommend that you never send cash through the mail, and you would send that in to us and tell us who made that donation, or if, let's say, you just put a bucket out and people threw their change in. This could be anonymous donations. But if you had an individual donor that only had cash on them and they gave you $300, you'd want to convert that into a money order or cashier's check and indicate that the individual's name and address so that we can provide them with a tax receipt.
All right, thank you, Katie. It looks like that's all the questions we have today. I just wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your day to present this webinar. And I just would like to let everyone know that this webinar was recorded and will be up online within the next few days. It will be in the next newsletter, but if you would like to request a copy sooner, you can email Katie at katie@unitedcp.org for a copy of this webinar. Also, you can request a PDF file of this webinar as well. So I just want to thank everyone for being here today and hope you have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.